And so anyway, I think the one thing that I forgot to talk about, which was kind of important around Craig, was when we bought the jackrabbits for several years. And there's a lot of people around Craig still that used to hunt and bring the jackrabbits in to the warehouse and sell them. And it was a big deal around here. And those years were probably in the early 50s to about 60, somewhere around there, that this went on. And I think everybody in Craig was out hunting jackrabbits. They would bring them in every morning to the warehouse in pickup trucks, just loaded up. There was a lot of rabbits. You got a picture of that? I'm going to leave these with you guys anyway. They call this the community coyote hunt, and it's a sunbeam somewhere in the 1920s. But they call it the coyote hunt. But all these animals here are jackrabbits. I suppose this is to show you how the jackrabbits multiplied in this country. And I know this is partially true. The game and fish people started killing coyotes off with poison. And naturally, the jackrabbits didn't have an enemy, so they just multiplied. So here's some pictures taken in Craig. Oh, here we go. I better get this taken care of. Okay, you got that? Okay. Here's a couple of pictures taken in Craig. And this was taken in the 1920s sometime in front of the Craig National Bank. And here's just a tremendous pile of rabbits out here with a lot of our old local citizens standing there in the picture. But evidently, and I have talked to a few old-timers that aren't here now, that said that they used to, well, my father-in-law, actually, Ann's dad, Art Allen, was involved in some of them, and they used to find deep gulches or dig deep ditches, and they would start herding the jackrabbits to them, and then they would get down in there and kill them. They'd just bring them in like that. And sometimes they would put up like a snow-type fence to corral them and get out there and kill them. Now that, supposedly, that picture there of all rabbits in Craig, at one time they would put those, they evidently put them on the train and sent them to Denver to feed the poor people. And I'd heard these stories before. I don't think that lasted too long, and it had to be in the wintertime when it was still cold. But evidently they did do that. So that's kind of part of the history. And then I've always heard stories that the jackrabbits would start multiplying every 7 years, stuff like that, but I don't know. I think they're just good stories. And then about the time that we started buying them, which I said was in the 40s, or 50s, and into 60s, that I think everybody in Craig was out hunting jackrabbits. And my dad and his partner thought it would be a good idea. They were actually, let me go back, as I remember, like a jackrabbit was maybe worth 25 cents, 35 cents, something like that. They got, as competition came along and buyers, they got higher. But my dad and his partner thought that they would start paying for the jackrabbits with $2 bills, so they could trace where all the money went from all these hunters. It was funny, but they did this. And guess where all the money ended up? Most of it. But it ended up in places like Mathers and the White Horse, and all these hunters had to go celebrate their hunt every day, and the stores where they bought the bullets. But I thought that was really funny. I'm sure that some of the money got home, but I don't know how much. And I've talked to a lot of guys around Craig, my age and so forth, that used to hunt, and there's a lot of wild stories out there about all their hunting that they did on these rabbits. Now, the rabbits that we bought came into the warehouse, and we'd have big, just big mounds of them in there in the morning after everybody brought them down. And the next morning you'd go in there and there'd be some rabbits running around. So you'd have to dispose of them. Talked to one guy yesterday, Marvin Moore, was telling me that he used to throw them all. He kind of drove like kind of an old SUV type vehicle, and he would throw them in the back as he got them. And he said one time all of a sudden he heard something. And there was a couple of jackrabbits running around in front of the windshield and all over. He had a heck of a time getting them cornered. But you can hear a lot of stories from all these people about that. And I shot quite a few myself, but I was in the service about that time, so I missed some of it. I know. When the jackrabbits came in, eventually, as it got warmer, when it was cold, we could leave them in a pile or kind of pile them up. And we started having to put them in big vans to keep them cool. And then they went from here to Cheyenne, Wyoming, was where our market was. And in Cheyenne, they would skin them. And I didn't go up there, but my dad told me they had like clothesline wires all across the building, and they're hanging these rabbits and jerking those skins off of them as fast as they can. And he said there was a kind of a vent blowing all the time, and there was rabbit fur in the air. You know, you could just imagine what that was like. And then they took the meat and they used it for dog food and mink feed, ranches, and so forth. But that only lasted a few years, and then it was over with. I wished I could tell you what they used the fur for. I know there was a lot of coats and so forth that the fur was used for, kind of collars and lining. And one gal this morning told me that they used to use it in gloves. She said it really felt good putting your hand in those gloves. She said she didn't know if it kept you warm or not, but the gloves felt good. And so there was a lot of uses for it. Too bad I don't have some of the old hides and so forth, but I don't anymore to show you.